Welcome to ASMR 400 for Found, whispered horror from haunted trailheads, like forest disappearances and creepy true stories. Subscribe now and don't look back. If you're seeing this and thinking of hiking the Coldwater Ridge Trailhead up near Mount Sterling in North Carolina, go looking for it on your GPS because it won't come up. Don't try finding trail maps because they always stop at the same broken bend in the service road. And don't believe what they say on forums, that it was just a search and rescue training site or an old firewatch route from the 1950s. Because I went up there and I came back, but I didn't come back. Hulim, writing this with the lights on, doors locked, and my back pressed up against the cold tile of my bathroom floor, because it's the only place I can see every corner, because I need to tell this story before they show up again, before the thing that walks in elevation catches the sound of my breath. It all started last fall, October 13th. I know because I was trying to get away from my ex's engagement party. Sounds petty, whatever, but I needed air. I needed to be in the trees, in the mist, away from reception, away from expectation. So I pulled out an old marked map I'd bought from a hiker junk sale and saw something penciled in faint graphite above. Mount Sterling, Coldwater Ridge. Do not summit past 4,000 feet, of course. I was intrigued, of course. I was stupid-eyed. Packed light, a tent, a cheap camera, a field recorder, protein bars, and a new pair of boots I hadn't broken in. And by 6:47 a.m. the next morning, I was driving up a deer-pocked road that didn't even look paved anymore. There was no one else, no tire marks, just mossy gravel and a heavy, drowning fog that somehow stayed below the tree line, like it was pinned there. The parking spot wasn't a real lot, just a cutoff near a rusted sign that read USFS Trail Access Coldwater Ridge, Alt, Route, temporarily closed. But the wood was splintered and the temporarily part looked like it had been nailed on later with a mismatched font. The kind of fake warning you slap up to keep urban explorers out. The kind I always ignored. The trail itself felt wrong from the first step. The incline wasn't just steep. It was consistently rising, like each step was on a very slightly tilting treadmill. And the switchback. They didn't switch back. They coiled, looped in this inward, spiraling pattern, like the mountain didn't want you going around it, like it wanted you going up. The higher I went, the quieter it got. Not peaceful, quiet, pressure, quiet. No birds, no insects, not even wind, just this subtle subsonic hum that never changed pitch. Like something was listening, measuring. My only been hiking for maybe 4 hours when I found the first marker. It was carved into a tree trunk, a strange, deep gouge in the shape of an eye, with 3 vertical slits running through the iris. Not graffiti, not natural. I took a photo. I regret that, because ever since I deleted that photo, I still see it in my gallery sometimes, even after factory resets, even on new phones. It's always there, in between my pictures. That slitted eye, staring through pixelated bark, but I kept going. I don't know why. Maybe it was ego. Maybe the trail's incline was doing something to my head, but I wasn't scared yet, just irritated. And then it started getting cold. Fast elevation signs stopped appearing after 3,800 feet. But my altimeter watch said I was still going up, minus 4,200, 4,500, 4,800, no summit, no crest, no leveling, just this impossible, eternal uphill walk that made my calves scream and my lungs feel like they were pulling glass eyes. Stopped near a crooked overlook, where the rocks were arranged in a strange triangular pattern. There were bones tucked between them, small ones, birds maybe, or something with thick size. Started setting up camp, but my gear wouldn't stay flat no matter how I adjusted. The tent kept leaning forward like gravity was wrong, and when I looked up, the trees weren't growing straight. They were all tilting toward, something toward the center. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear yet, but because the sounds began. They started like distant footsteps, too rhythmic to be animal, too padded to be human. Crunch, 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 like something with weight, but no hurry. Circling, rising to 13 a.m. Exactly the recorder I'd left running outside the tent cut off, just a hard click. I know the time because I'd left my phone on airplane mode to save battery. And the lock screen showed the minute it froze. And when I looked outside, the forest was lit not with light, but with this low, undulating blue shimmer, like the air itself was glowing, like the entire elevation had been ignited by something under the ground. Then I saw the shadow, no detail, no face, but it stood at the edge of my tent, motionless, tall to it, bent in a way people don't. A kind of angle you only see in broken animals or wet paper. And when I blinked, it was closer. That was the first time I heard the breathing. It wasn't mine. It wasn't above me or around me. It was under me, low, wet, slow. The ground beneath my tent pulsed once, then twice, like something was moving through the earth directly beneath me. And when I scrambled out, flashlight in hand, there was nothing, just trees, just mist, just that symbol again, freshly carved into a tree that hadn't been marked before. Should have turned back, but something about the trail wouldn't let me. The path down was gone literally when I tried retracing my steps. The turns didn't lead anywhere. Each trail looked the same, identical bark, same bend, same moss. Even the rocks had the same chips and the same lichen patches. Like someone was copy-pasting. Foresti walked in circles for 11 hours. My GPS spun, my compass wouldn't stop ticking like a clock, and just before I gave up, I saw the structure. It wasn't a cabin. It wasn't even a tower. It was a staircase, wooden, leading upward. No railing, no support, just a staircase going up into the trees with nothing on top and at the bottom. A sign nailed to a wooden post, almost sunken into the roots. The only words legible were, "Elevation owns time. Do not climb if you hear your name." And I did. I heard it soft, like it was behind my ear, like it was already inside. MIT whispered, "My name, the way your own voice sounds in a dream, wrong, detached, predictive." And I climbed. I don't remember climbing the staircase, only that it didn't end. There was no platform, no lookout, no summit, just step after step. Wood that shouldn't have held my weight, but did. Wood that creaked in syllables, and after an hour, or maybe more, the light began to change. Not like sunset, not like cloud cover, but like reality, was losing resolution. The trees blurred, the sky pulsed. My hands looked like someone else's in front of me. Too long, too pale, wrong joints on. Then I was there. Don't have a name for the place. I called it the dead elevation, because everything above that altitude felt like it had been drained. No sound, no breath, just wind that didn't move anything, and trees that leaned away from something in the center. The staircase ended at a hollow, an unnatural dip in the mountain with a spiral trench carved into the middle, and at the center of that trench stood a doorknob. A building, just a door, 7 feet tall, rust-red old brass knob, standing upright with no frame and no walls. The wind moved through it, but didn't touch it, and when I got closer, the hum started again, that same low frequency. Body vibrating drone I'd felt the first day. It was stronger now, so strong my teeth ached, so strong my stomach twisted, and somewhere behind me something was running, not like an animal, more like a person, with broken hips and long limbs. It slapped the ground, bent branches, gurgled breath through cracked lungs, and I didn't turn around. I couldn't guess. If I turned, it would know I saw it, and if I saw it, it could follow. I grabbed the knob, not to open the door, but to keep from falling. My balance was failing, like I was standing sideways on a wall, and as my fingers touched the brass, I heard my voice say, "You already opened it," not from me, from behind the door, from inside the knob twisted. And the world broke open suddenly. It was night again, but not the right night. Stars I didn't recognize, moon, two low colors, two sharpened behind me. The staircase was gone. The trench was now filled with water, thick, still, black, and in the water floated dozens, maybe hundreds of boots, just boots, left ones all sizes, all slowly turning like they were stuck in Surapai ran. I don't remember how or where, just that the forest I ended up in wasn't the one I came from. The bark was wrong, smooth, almost human in texture, and the trees bled white when I brushed against them. Not sap, but something thin, like Siramai walked for what must have been 2 days, but it was never day. The light stayed dim, low, permanent dusk, and my watch kept flashing random times. PDYYPA. Then back to Nathana. Eye symbols started appearing again, not carved, now grown into the moss, into tree knots. Even in the clouds of condensation on my thermos, always watching, always slitted eye, found a tent, not mine, but old canvas type with rusted zippers and a name tag sewn into the flap. E. Morris, USFS Rescue. Inside were 6 tape recorders. Only one had batteries. I played it static, then breathing, then a voice. If you're hearing this, you're in the loop. Elevation doesn't just rise. It resets. It watches who climbs. It remembers who steps where they shouldn't. You are not where you think you are. Then it cut off right before something outside the tent began dragging its fingers along the canvas. Slow, deliberate, like it was tracing May. Didn't breathe, I didn't move, and somehow it moved on when I got brave enough to leave. The trees had shifted again, this time into rose perfect, mathematical, like a plantation forest, but too close together to walk through. so I followed the only space between them, and it led me to another structure, not a staircase, not a door, but a wall curved stone, 10 feet high, and covered in those same eyes, and there, right in the middle, was a person, or what used to be one. They were seated, head bowed, arms out like crucifixion. But there were no ropes, no nails, just vines, vines. But moved I got closer, and they looked up. It was mean, not similar, me same scar on my eyebrow, same shirt, even the torn knee in my pants. But their eyes were missing, sucked in like vacuum pits, and from their mouth poured something like oil mixed with bash. They tried to speak, but all that came out was, "He's still climbing." Then they crumbled like their body had just been waiting to stop existing. And from their dust the trail reappeared, real Trail 1. I recognized the Coldwater Ridge switchback, but facing downhill, ran, didn't stop, didn't sleep. My legs were bleeding, my lips cracked, and all I remember thinking was, "Don't look behind you," because the footsteps were back faster this time, desperate, echoing my own. Reached my car. Bat dawn, or some version of dawn. My GPS still didn't work, but the road was paved again. The sign was back, only this time there was a second one nailed just above the original, a fresh wooden plaque that read, "Summit officially closed, elevation. Error unresolved." I didn't go home after I got to the car. I didn't even get back on the main road for hours, because when I tried to drive away, my tires spun in place, not stuck in mud, not blown out, just stuck like the car didn't recognize the direction down anymore, like it didn't trust where the road was taking it. The trees were wrong again, too. I'd parked next to a bare patch of woods. Now they were dense, no light getting through. Every single branch arched inward over the car, like a cage, and worse. The door wouldn't open, not the lock, the door handle. It turned. But nothing happened, no click, no release, just soft resistance, like it was pushing into something living on the other side. That's when the engine started by itself. My hands weren't on the keys, they were on my lap, and the engine came alive, slow, like waking up from anesthesia. Every warning light blinked in unison. Then the radio turned. Owner voice came through. But it wasn't music, it wasn't a broadcast. It was Mimi voice, but slower, like it had been stretched across hours, and it was saying the same thing over and over. "You climbed the wrong side. You climbed the wrong side. You climbed the wrong side." Then the gas gauge ticked up to full, even though I'd burned almost everything coming in, and the headlights flicked on and stayed on, pointing directly into the tree lines and moved out there. I swear to God, I saw it. It wasn't walking, it was descending, arms open, no feet touching the ground, like gravity didn't apply, like the mountain had rewritten the rules. I closed my eyes, held my breath, and whispered the only thing I could think of, "Let me out the right way." I didn't even know what that meant, but it worked, because when I opened my eyes it was night, again, real night. The kind with crickets and fog, and the sound of leaves actually moving, and my door popped open like it had never been stuck. And when I looked behind me, the trail was gone. No path, no sign, no Coldwater Ridge, just asphalt, real road. And behind that silence I drove until I hit cell signal. My phone buzzed with 63 missed alerts, all from people I hadn't talked to in years, all time-stamped. At the exact same moment, 3:06 a.m., one of them was a voicemail from a blocked number. I played it. It was just the wind, and under that, my name not whispered screamed like someone was buried alive and calling up through the mountain like someone had taken my place. I spent the next month researching the trail, found nothing, not even on forums, not on any U.S. Forest Service site. The name Coldwater Ridge didn't exist outside of my map, and that map gone. The photo I took replaced it. Now shows me at the trailhead, smiling, but I never took that picture. And I've never worn the clothes I'm wearing in it. There's one more thing, and it's the reason I'm writing this now. Last week, a package showed up at my door. No return address inside was a compass, but the needle points straight up, not north, not magnetic, just up always, even when I turn it sideways. Even when I bury it under metal land this morning. I noticed something else when I looked in the mirror. My eyes didn't match. One of them had a slit in the center, vertical, like a reptile, like the eye in the triso. If you're reading this, don't go looking for the Coldwater Ridge Trailhead. Don't ask about elevation markers. And never follow a path that keeps rising when the air doesn't change. Because once you reach the wrong altitude, something reaches back, and once you hear your own voice calling from a door that doesn't open, it's already too late. You're already climbing against her end. If you're reading this right now, and you're even thinking of stepping foot onto the Bitter Hollow Trailhead tucked inside West Virginia's Monongahela National Forest, you need to stop whatever you're doing, pack your gear back into your trunk, and drive away while you still can. I don't care if you've planned this trip for months, or if your GPS brought you here by accident. I don't care if you're chasing ghost stories or just looking for a quiet hike in Appalachia, because if you step onto that trail, you won't come back the same. And if you come back at all, you won't be able to tell your story because something else will already be using your voice. Made the mistake last fall. My name is Kara Chambers. I'm from Roanoke. I'm 27. I work remote. I hike to manage anxiety, depression. The usual stuff. My therapist told me to reconnect with nature. My ex said I was just running from things. Maybe he was right. I'd done the New River Gorge and parts of Shenandoah. I'd seen a Facebook post about Bitter Hollow, some off-the-books place deep in the Monongahela. Nobody'd ever really heard of it. I searched trail forums, Reddit camping sites, and all I found were vague warnings. Not many pictures, no real reviews, just fragmented sentences like, "Do not follow the whispering, and it's not a hallucination if it remembers you." Why? Thought it was all just LARP horror bullshit, people being edgy online. The GPS showed a forest access road, rough but drivable. It didn't even have a name, just a dotted line leading to an unmarked location. I figured worst case, I'd get a good hike out of it. Best case, I'd finally have some peace eye left. Friday morning, got there just before dusk. The road ended in a gravel turnabout, and sure enough, there it was. Bitter Hollow Trailhead. No signage, just a splintered wooden post that looked like it used to hold a placard. now long gone. The trail stretched into a line of towering black pine trees, and the air there was thick, heavier than the rest of the forest, like it didn't want to be breathed, like it had weight and memory. I shrugged off the nerves, strapped my backpack on, and walked in. I told myself I'd camp by the stream I saw marked on an old forest map, printed offline, and loop back in the morning. I took a photo of the car's coordinates before I left service. Died as soon as I stepped into the pines. Not one bar dead, but flat black. Nothing like the trailhead. Swallowed me, hold the trees. Here don't creak, they don't sway, they don't rustle, they listen. I felt that almost immediately, the way you feel when someone's behind. You breathing steady, watching. But when you turn, nothing's there. The path narrowed fast, the soil darker. Like ash, the pine needles underfoot, dry but sticky. My boots made no sound, like even my footsteps weren't allowed. Here I hiked, an hour, maybe 2. I kept checking my phone, even though I knew it was useless time. Felt strange, like it stretched between. The trees' light faded faster than it should have, and I swear the shadows moved with purpose, always just behind my left shoulder. I turned more than once, and thought I saw something duck behind a trunk, tall, gaunt shapes, just out of sight around what I guessed was mile 4. I came to a break in the trees, a small clearing, circular, like unnaturally perfect, like it had been burned flat, but there was no char, no smoke, no scent, just this ring of bare earth, and at its center an old, well-made tove stone with no crank, no rope, no bucket. The rocks were wet with moss, and old symbols were carved along the edge. Symbols I didn't recognize, sharp, crude angles that seemed to shimmer in my peripheral, but when I stared directly, they dulled again. Should have turned back, but I was so deep in, I figured I'd be closer to the stream ahead and could make camp before true dark. I stepped round the well, gave it wide space, felt something shift in the air behind me, like a breath being drawn. I snapped a picture on my phone. It didn't save, not to gallery, not to SD. Not to cloud, it just vanished, as if the photo had been consumed right from the shutter. The woods beyond the clearing were denser, less trail, more forced path. Something wanted to guide me. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I stopped choosing directions. I was being pulled not by sound or sight, but this feeling of where to go, like being magnetized, like my thoughts weren't my own anymore. I started hearing it then, just before. The stream whispers beneath the wind, not words at first, just syllables dragged across bark, tones that trembled inside. My skull, not my ears, they said my name once. I'm not kidding, they said. It clear as anything, they said, Kara. And it came. From the trees that night I set up camp by the stream. I didn't build a fire. The idea of light felt offensive, like I'd be exposing something I wasn't supposed to see. I ate protein bars, I drank bottled water, I zipped myself into my tent and listened to the trees breathe. I say breathe because they did. The forest has lungs out there, slow and low and wet, like something massive exhaling beneath the soil around. 3 a.m., something walked round my tent. I froze. I didn't move, not even to breathe. Heavy steps, no crunch of leaves, just that sticky sliding of pine needles. Something tall, it circled twice, stopped behind me. I felt warmth on the tent wall, not like body heat, more like steam. I swear I saw the fabric ripple like breath against it. I clenched my knife under the sleeping bag and waited until the steps wandered off, or vanished, or whatever they did out here. Morning didn't come with light. The sun rose behind a veil. The trees swallowed it. I packed fast, didn't eat, just drank what I had and started hiking again. Only the trail was gone. I swear I marked my path. I always do ribboned trees. GPS pins, but the marks weren't there anymore. The trail looked different. Wrong trees. I didn't pass hills that hadn't been there before. And the worst part was, I wasn't alone anymore, not in the normal way. I'm telling you, something followed me that whole next day. I never saw it full, only in reflections, water, puddles. The glint on my phone screen, something tall, lanky, arms too long, a face stretched like it had no bones. I never saw its eyes, but I felt them, and every time I blinked, it got closer, like it was only allowed to move when I didn't look by nightfall. I found a cabin, not on any map, just standing there, between trees, like it had grown up from the forest roots, half swallowed by moss, wooden boards, soft with rot, one shutter hanging crooked, the door slightly open, no padlock, no chain, just this sense of invitation, like it wanted me to come inside. I should have kept walking, but I was starving, shaking, exhausted, and losing my mind. I stepped in, smelled mildew, old fire, blood, and something worse. I found a journal on a table, pages stained with ink, and what I pray was rust. Only 2 pages were readable. The rest torn, burnt, or fused together. The first read, you don't find Bitter Hollow, it finds you, and the second just said she wears your skin if you sleep too long. The floor creaked upstairs. Something moved. I turned and saw the front door close. Not swing close, not blown shut, but slowly, gently, with pressure like fingers around the frame. I didn't wait to see what came next. I ran. I ran straight through the forest off-trail, crashing through brush, cutting myself on branches. I didn't stop until I fell, knees bloody, palms shredded. I was back at the well only. It was open now, and something was climbing out. I don't know how long I lay there at the edge of that clearing, staring into the black mouth of the open well, because time doesn't move right in. Bitter hollow, it drips sideways, like sap or blood, thick and unwilling. The forest around me went. Still again, not quiet, but still like even the insects had been hushed, like the trees were waiting, and then I heard it, the wet, dragging sound of something climbing up the interior stone of the well. I pushed myself back, hands scraping pine needles and grit. The moss near the rim was slick with what I thought was water, until I smelled it, coppery, thick blood, not fresh, but not dry either. Something long dead, but still moving. I wanted to look down. I needed to look, but every part of me screamed. Not to, like a primal warning deep in the old part of the brain, the part that remembers predators we don't speak of anymore. So I ran again. I didn't even grab my pack. I just turned and ran into the trees. I didn't care about direction or maps. Poor escape at that point. I just knew I couldn't be near that well when it got out. I think the forest liked that. I think Bitter Hollow feeds on fear, but it especially loves desperation, and it rewards panic by warping everything the trees closed. Bend in the path, bent and bent and bent, like it was spiraling me deeper into its hearty. Eventually, I stopped, because my body forced me to. My lungs were fire, my legs rubber. I collapsed beside a tree and sobbed quietly, the kind of sob you don't even hear in your own ears, the kind that just leaks from you like fluid. And while I knelt there, I saw it again, not directly, not with my eyes, but through the shadow it cast on the moss. The tall thing, the long thing, the wrong thing, its limbs folding in impossible ways, moving without motion, standing just beyond the edge of what I could see. And then it spoke. It didn't use words, not at first. It used memory. I saw my father's face, even though he died in 2019. I heard his voice asking why I let myself come here, why I always ran from love, why I never belonged. And then it became my therapist's voice, cold, clinical, dissecting me, asking why. I self-harmed emotionally by seeking these places, and finally it used my own voice, whispering to me from every direction, asking why I even tried to survive. I screamed, then I screamed until my throat bled. I screamed until still I passed out. And when I woke, I was in a different part of the woods, flat, even ground, a line of trees forming to neat walls like a hallway. No trail markers, no trash, no wildlife, just a path shaped by intention, and I don't know who or what made it, but it felt like it had been waiting for May. Walked that corridor of trees for what could have been hours each step, feeling heavier, like I was walking through water or mud or memory. The air here was sharp. It cut inside my nose like metal, like old pennies, and I started seeing them, the faces in the pines. At first, I thought they were knots in the bark, illusions, tricks of the eye, but they blinked, and some of them wept sap, and others had mouths stretched wide in silent screams, open round and hollow, no tongues. Just black caverns of horror. They weren't watching me. They were reliving something trapped in eternal loops of trauma and terror. And every so often one of them would twitch, as if noticing me, as if pleading for me to help. But you can't help the trees in Bitter Hollow once you're carved in your permanent. Eventually the corridor opened into a clearing smaller than the one with the well. This one had something else in the center, a mirror standing free. No base, no wall, just a tall, old-timey mirror with a cracked gold frame and foggy glass. And when I looked into it, it didn't it showed a version of me standing still. Eyes wide, mouth sewn shut, her skin was pale blue. Her fingers were longer, her teeth black and jagged. She moved when I moved, mimicked every gesture like a mockery. And when I tried to look away, my neck wouldn't turn. She stepped closer. But the real me didn't move. The reflection advanced while I stood paralyzed. And when she reached the inside of the glass, she pressed her hand against it, and my hand began to burn, a mirror image of her. Fingers scorched into my palm, blistering skin, swelling. I could smell my own flesh cooking, but I still couldn't look away. She opened her mouth slowly, the stitches ripping open with wet, tearing sounds. And she said, "Let me out, I'm already inside." And that's when the mirror cracked from the inside. The glass didn't break outward, it shattered inward. like it had become a window and something behind her was crawling closer behind her. In that reflection was the long-limbed thing, its face, just behind her head, whispering in her ear with a grin that reached from ear to ear and up into its scalping. Ran again. I'd started doing that a lot. I don't even remember how I got away from the mirror, only that I ran until the woods looked wrong again, and I mean that literally. The trees were no longer trees. They'd become bodies, still rooted, but unmistakably human. Now bark stretched over faces, arms fused into trunks, mouths open in permanent screams, and they watched me every step. They followed with blind wooden eyes that oozed sap thick as puss, one of them whispered. As I passed, it used my mother's voice, but she died when I was 13, and it said, "Stop running, Kara. You'll only get tired." I stumbled into what looked like a church or some twisted memory of one deep in the woods, walls of bark, pews made of roots, a pulpit carved from bone, and at its altar stood a figure in black. Robes, no face, just shadows beneath a hood, and it held a book made of skin, and I think it was reading names. I didn't wait to hear Min. I don't know how much time passed, maybe days, maybe hours. The forest doesn't operate on Earth's clock. I found another path, eventually a straight shot lined with dead lanterns, none of them lit, but glowing faintly like their remembered light, and I followed it, not because I thought it led out, but because it led somewhere. At the end of that path was a field, a perfect circle again, and in the center a cabin, but not the one I saw before this. One was alive, it pulsed, its wood moving with breath, windows, blinking walls, throbbing like muscle, the door already open, and breathing slow, rhythmic, like it had lungs, and that's when I knew it wasn't a house, it was a mouth, and I was already standing on its tongue, backed away slowly, but the grass reached up, wrapped around my ankles. Tiny hands of weed and thorn pulling me closer, and inside I saw something glowing faintly, and I swear I saw other people in their faces. I almost recognized one of them was May. Blacked out again because the last thing I remember was the sound of a baby crying from inside the cabin. Only it wasn't a baby, it was something pretending, something learning my memories, trying new ways to bait me, and I woke up in the well, not beside it, inside it, lying on slick stone knees, bruised head ringing, and above me the circle of sky, barely visible, and the long-limbed thing crouched at the edge, staring down, smiling mouth full of too many teeth. It whispered, "You came back, Kara." They always don't. Then it dropped something, my backpack, fresh, clean, untouched, like I'd never been lost, like none of it happened. I didn't scream when I saw my backpack drop into the well. I just froze because I knew what that meant. I was meant to return. I didn't fall into Bitter Hollow. I was pulled that pack. It looked untouched, like it hadn't seen a single raindrop or speck of forest dirt, like I'd just walked into Ray and picked it off the rack. I touched it carefully, afraid it would vanish or rot in my hands, but it didn't. It was solid, clean, zipped perfectly, everything inside intact, even the trail map. Except this time the trail looked different. Marked on the map was a second path, drawn in what looked like ash, a new one, one that hadn't been there before. It was twisted, unnatural, but it ended in an X with 3 words written next to it: dig where it screams. I didn't want to follow it, but I knew by now that my choices weren't mine. Not here, not in Bitter Hollow. The forest doesn't just shift around you, it shifts you. It reaches in and unties the strings that hold you together and bend with its own will. So I climbed out of the wellstone by wet stone nails, torn knees, bleeding hands, shaking, and when I reached the top, I turned back to look inside, and it was no longer a well, it was a grave with my name already carved in the stone around. E.T. took the new path. It led me through the graveyard of trees again, but this time the wooden faces weren't silent. They were screaming, all of them, every one open-mouthed, howling in silence, like their sound had been stolen and was being kept just under my skin. I felt it under my ribs, like a vibration, like my bones were humming with their agony. I knew what they were now, not faces, not people. They were echoes, every hiker, every camper, every soul that ever stepped into Bitter Hollow and didn't come out bitter. Hollow doesn't eat you, it keeps youth. Ash path twisted on itself, and every bend smelled stronger of rot and earth and iron. And just before it ended, I found something sticking out of the soil. Lay shovel-old wooden, handle black with rot-rusted metal blade, stained red and too heavy for something so small. I dug because I had to. I didn't know what I was looking for, but the ground screamed with each scoop, not with noise, but with pressure. Every pile I turned felt like peeling back something living, like the forest itself was watching me dig into its flesh. And finally, I hit something solid. Wood day box snow, bigger than a suitcase, sealed with rope and wax, and symbols carved deep in the top ones I recognized. From the well, from the mirror, from the faces. And when I touched the lid, it felt like ice. My breath steamed in the air, and I heard my own voice whisper from inside the box. It saidn't open me, but I did, because that's what Bitter Hollow wanted inside. Was skin, a full face, my face, eyes closed, stitched at the edges, mouth sealed tight, cheeks, pale blue teeth, too many and wrong, and underneath that mask was bone knot. Clean skull, bone fresh, wet bone. It was me, and suddenly everything made sense. This wasn't about haunting or horror. This was a ritual. The forest doesn't just kill, it duplicates it, copies every soul that steps in, becomes a template, a costume for whatever lives under the soil, whatever wears us to leave the forest, to walk among the world. Thing that followed me, the thing that showed me my reflection, that smiled from the edge of the mirror, wasn't stalking Met, was becoming May. Dropped the mask, and it screamed louder than the trees, louder than the bones, louder than the dead. And the forest twisted around me, branches snapping like bones, cracking trees bending away from me like they were afraid of what I'd found. And from the roots rose the figure again, the long-limbed creature, now full height, standing 2 stories tall. Arms stretched to the earth, legs like stilts of bone, its head low and wide, its face a blank slate except for the stitched smile. It walked like it didn't understand gravity, like the world bent to hold it up. And as it neared, it said only one thing: backed, accepted. Then it reached out hand, placed a new face over its own mine. Ran, but I was slow. So slow, slow the forest had drained me, hollow and I knew as I ran that I wasn't the original anymore. The real I was already buried under the well I was the echo. Perversion it allowed to survive Bitter Hollow. Doesn't keep you because it hates you. Keeps you because it needs you, because it has to send something back. I stumbled into the same field from before. Only this time the cabin was gone, and in its place was the trailhead, the same cracked wooden post, the same gravel road, my car parked perfectly clean, untouched, my keys sitting on the driver's seat. My phone buzzed one missed call from May, turned the screen off, and sat in the front seat, and waited, because I knew someone else was coming in. Another hiker, another Storian, another skin. I felt it already shifting inside me, my bones growing longer, my fingers aching to reach into the trees. My thoughts not mine anymore, and when I looked into the rear-view mirror, I saw Hertha Kara that got out smiling back at me. It wasn't me not anymore, Tay Chend.